Hello, everyone. I am Josue Rojano, and with me is Michael Pramawat, and we are now at the top four of the Rockford, Illinois City Championships here in the Chicago Marathon.
Yeah, so last match we had a pretty straightforward matchup between Justin Young and the winner of that match, Vince Blasko. And it looks like we're seeing another of the same matchup from the top eight, as we have Michael Young playing a similar Garbador deck.
Yeah, Vince Blasko just took out Michael Young's son, and he's looking to try to do the same thing to his father, Michael. Now we saw how Vince actually took out Justin Justin was using the Garbador deck. Now it turns out that his father actually is using the exact same deck, so we're going to be seeing a mirror match of sorts as the top eight and the top four matches are going to be they're going to look pretty identical.
Yeah, so Vince, he had a pretty, we'll say a pretty favorable matchup from what it seemed like the last match happened, as it was a 2-0 in a pretty convincing fashion. Justin tried to, get some things going for him, but unfortunately Vince kind of just had all the answers, and we'll see if it's either a repeat of last match or if maybe Michael can kind of pull something out of the hat.
Yeah, you're going to be seeing that Vince is going to, at least if I was Vince, I would feel pretty confident just having taken out his son and feeling pretty good about the matchup. The matchup did feel like it was favored for Vince. It felt like Vince really just takes advantage of the Garbador's weaknesses, and at least in those two games that happen to be the case. So if I'm Vince here, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling pretty good about myself, and it seems like Michael might have had a rip sleeve, so they're taking care of that right now. I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm pretty sure Vince was drinking out of a wine glass right before this. Obviously, he was drinking water, but I thought it was pretty cool. That was pretty classy of Vince.
Yeah, the hotel was nice enough to provide water and chalices, so it was good to go. It was a nice thing, but yeah. So we do see a double Terrakion start, and looks like Michael gets to go first.
Yeah. Obviously, Justin's deck also played Terrakion, as we saw in Game 2. Now, we do see Michael. I don't believe I see too much in Michael's hand. And yeah, I really don't, because Michael just passes after attaching an energy.
So yeah, this is one of like the downsides of Garbodor. There's a lot of things going wrong when you play a Garbodor deck that can go wrong with Garbodor deck. You don't get any Garbodors out. You don't have any tools, and unfortunately, this is the one that hits every deck. You don't have a supporter, so this is a big blow. There's some decks that kind of avoid the blow more than others, and Darkrai is definitely one of those decks.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say spoiler warning to those of you who haven't seen the top 8 match, but it felt like Justin's deck really kind of ran out of gas both games, and it ran out of gas early on. Maybe the deck just doesn't play enough supporters. I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating here. But the fact that this has happened basically 3 games in a row now really makes me wonder about the deck's consistency, as he top decked a Trubbish and played it and passed again. So it's a really unfortunate start for Michael, and obviously if Vince wasn't feeling confident at the beginning of this match, he definitely is now, as he's going to attach his third energy to this Terrakion, I'm sure, or get a secondary threat in play. So we do see an Ultra Ball. He's going to discard a Mewtwo, I believe.
Yeah, and an N.
Yeah, and an N. So he obviously has a supporter in his hand.
Yeah, he has a Juniper in his hand. He's been kind of waiting it out to play it. He wants to get all the energy he can onto the board. Really just go through his options. And I like this energy play from Vince. Not putting the 3 energy, not going for the Land Crush. He doesn't have to. He can just simply poke at the Terrakion for 30, and then maybe next turn just go, hey, I'm just gonna Land Crush you. So
yeah, it would have been the same thing if he would have dealt 90 damage, or if he deals 30 there. As long as he deals 90 damage this turn, it was still going to be a 3-hit knockout. Now, we saw a Pokemon Catcher. I really don't like that play. I think he's just playing the Pokemon Catcher for the sake of playing it, because obviously Darkrai had that for your treat because it had an energy attached to it. So now Michael is absolutely in the back foot here. He lost his Terrakion. The Landorus has 1 energy attached to it, but it does not have a second one. Now he plays the second catcher. I really don't like that. I don't see why he's doing this. There's absolutely no reason to do it. Oh, except for the fact that he actually has an energy on it. I forgot. My apologies.
Well, the first catcher was kind of a little bit wasteful, But the second catcher is really good. It really just says, hey, you're going to need to commit some energy onto that Darkrai, or I'm just going to destroy you with this Landorus right here. So, if we can get, if Michael can get a supporter sometime soon, then he'll be in great shape. Plus, we see a double tails on Crushing Hammer, which is huge.
Well, there's that supporter that that we were just talking about, as he just drew a Juniper, which is obviously amazing. But the fact that he got double tails is actually even more amazing, because now Michael's going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Vince, since his Landorus has 0 energy on it, or 0 damage on it. And yeah, I do apologize for having missed that energy drop, but it's still not a very good position for Michael, even though he just drew his supporter, even though he's obviously back in the game now. His opponent has 5 energy and played as 1, potentially 2, and it's just it's tough. He at least has a Garbador in play, though, so that does really mean something. What it means, I'm not exactly sure yet, but it means something.
Do you know what time it is? It's Mewtwo
no.
time. So we see a Mewtwo with a DCE. We see a bunch of more DCEs in Michael's hand, and he's just ready to go. Hey, when this Landorus goes down, guess what's next?
Yeah, that's true. Now, he did deal another 60 damage to that Darkrai because of weakness, and he dealt another 30 to the bench Terrakion. Actually, 10 because he attached an Eviolite to it on the previous turn. So we do see another supporter off of Vince, drawing more cards, attaches a 3rd energy to his Darkrai, so he's going to be able to actually put some damage on this Landorus before it gets knocked out. And I don't know. What do you think he's actually going to deal the extra 30 damage to?
I would go after the Mewtwo at this point. Though then again, Vince did discard his Mewtwo, so that Mewtwo is gone. I highly doubt he plays 2. So yeah, this Mewtwo could just go buck wild. So you really need to get damage on it and take care of it quick.
Yeah, exactly, right? It seems like at the time, obviously, Vince didn't need the Mewtwo, but now he might be regretting it. Now he might feel like, oh man, this could have been my opportunity to really kind of seal the deal. But instead, now he's got to attach or deal 30 damage to that Mewtwo on the bench and hope that he can kind of just stabilize off of this, because now the Landorus is going to be getting a knockout on this Darkrai, and then Terrakion's going to come back and knock out that Landorus back, but then the Mewtwo is going to be able to do whatever it wants to do.
Yeah, that's what it means for it to be Mewtwo time. So, we're going to see another Hammerhead, maybe put 3 damage more on, or another damage counter on the not the Landorus, the Terrakion. Let's see, let's do the math real quick. So right now that Mewtwo can do 80 damage to the Terrakion. So you want to have it do 10 more to the Terrakion. That way you don't have to commit another DCE to the Mewtwo or another energy. And you can kind of spread your energies out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. That is the correct play. It'll be interesting to see if Michael does that play or not. We see a second Mewtwo now with no damage counters, as well as a double colorless energy attached to it. So we obviously see Michael's game plan, and if I'm Vince here, not only am I not feeling confident, but I'm also feeling really flabbergasted. Like, now what do I have to do here? My opponent has a much better board position than I do, and I don't have any abilities. I can't really do anything. Do I actually have to fall back onto the Sableye plan? Do I even have enough time to do that? Do I have to hope he doesn't have enough switches in his hand? Or I don't know. But we'll have to see if Vince just goes for the knockout here with Retaliate.
Well, there's one thing going right for Vince, is that his opponent had to discard 3 switches early game. So this really leaves the option open for the Sableye to just come in randomly and go, hey guys, I'm going to junk hunt for crushing hammers and catchers, and that's going to be game. So, yeah. This Terrakion is going to get 2 prizes pretty nicely, but the Mewtwo's are what's really going to be putting on the pressure. So, if Vince can get, like, an enhanced hammer going with, like, Sableye junk hunt, then he's going to be in great shape.
Did Vince just actually energy search and not find any energies?
Yeah, he already attached for the turn, so he was just getting rid of the energy search. He probably just didn't want to draw it. He's looking for the hammer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually wondering if he actually didn't have any energies in his deck or not. I didn't think I saw any, but we'll have to wait and see. He might have a few prized, but never mind. I think he just drew 1, so. forget about that. And yeah, the Landers is gonna get knocked out this turn. Then the Mewtwo, I do expect to see a fresh Mewtwo. I guess that doesn't actually matter, but I do expect to see a Mewtwo come back and knock out that Landers or that Trakin, and then we're probably gonna have to see some junk hunting.
Speak of the combo, we see the Enhance Hammer and the Catcher just ready to tear some stuff up. So at this point, I'd liked to see one damage counter go into Terrakion, because now he's going to need the plus power or an energy card to take out this Terrakion. So we'll see if he has either.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be too hard for him to have either of these, but the fact that he didn't put the damage on it does kind of force him to commit a few more resources. We see a Skyla out of him, so this is probably the resource that we're actually talking about, where he's going to have to find a plus power here with this Skyla.
Well, I believe I saw a plus power in his hand, so here he can just, Skyla for, well, he gets a computer search, but, he can get Skyla for, like, maybe a supporter or something, as another option. He has a couple of rescue scarfs in his hand. So I actually would have liked to seen maybe a Skyla for a Juniper. Would have been nice. And just kind of commit a plus power to this knockout.
It feels like every time I play Skyla, I always find this computer search with it. Skyla and computer search are best friends in my decks, but maybe that's just because I need all the options I can get. But we do see that plus power. That plus power does come down. The Terrakion is not long for this world, and then we're going to have to see what kind of a game plan Vince goes with here.
Maybe that's because all your decks involve Sableye. So, honestly, I think most of the decks don't even want to, when I play Skyla, unless you're playing Sableye, you generally don't even want a Skyla for a computer search unless you absolutely have to for that turn, because it's more like a wild card, if you think about it. It's like, hey, if I just randomly draw into this, I drew into one out and then one card. So, like, if you say you need two cards and you draw the computer search and other card, hey, great, But a lot of times Skyla is, like, it can get anything anyways. So,
I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm always energy light, and I always go Skyla for computer search for energy. All right, here we go. I guess that's more or less what I was trying to say. But yeah, I love Sableye, and I love the Sableye shenanigans, and apparently so does Vince, because he just used Junk Hunt and ended his turn that way. So we're going to be seeing kind of like the little mini combo. And I didn't like Vince's position a couple of turns ago. I do now. I don't necessarily think he's in the best of shape, but he's in much better shape than he was a couple turns ago.
Yeah, well, that Vince knows that Michael has already gone through 3 switches, and he knows that he has 2 DCEs on the board. Well, had 2 DCEs. One of them got enhanced hammered. So the only way this Garbador is really moving is like DCE or the last switch. And here we see another Garbador come down to the field. So instantaneously, if this Sableye sticks on the field, it is game over, because he can just capture the Garbadors all day, he can just crushing hammer all day, and then eventually the game will just be over.
Yeah, I really didn't want to see that Garbador come into play here. Even if, like, let's say Michael decides to start attaching energies to that active Garbador, Vince is just going to be able to play the catcher up the other Garbador, and start crushing hammering this other one. So it is a really rough spot that Michael's going to be in once his last switch is gone. So we did see him find the switch with the computer search, but now that he's got his switch, he's going to have to use it eventually, including basically right now, and that's it. That's all 4 switches gone.
Yeah, so we're just going to see Mewtwo come up, and now it's really, can Vince get another Sableye and a catcher going? He has a catcher in his hand.
I really did not want to see him play this catcher here. That Sableye is going to stay alive, and that means that we're going to be able to see some more junk hunting.
Yeah. Does Vince have the Tool Scrapper? Yes, he does. So now at this point, it's pretty much the Sableye lock. We're going to see a catcher on the fresh Garbador. We're going to see a Tool Scrapper on the tools. And, at this point, all Vince needs to do is just junk hunt all day, get the Tool Scrapper back with junk hunt, and eventually junk hunt crushing hammer will win the day.
Yeah. With the 4 switches gone, really This is now, I don't want to call it a lock yet, but it might as well be. It's one of those situations where if you see Michael's board, we see one energy on the Garbador, and I believe that's the only energy in play. The enhanced hammers really did work against the double colorless energies that were attached, and with no switches in play, it's a matter of time.
So Vince opts to not get the Tool Scrapper. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like to be like at this point, I like to be 100% safe. And I think Tool Scrapper would have been the 100% safe move. Like Tool Scrapper with a Crushing Hammer would have been like the best, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, this route is okay too. He's pretty much has this game locked up anyway, so that's just nitpicking at this point.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario for him, he gets captured by one of his Darkrai's gets captured, and then he'll have to attach another energy and then pay the retreat cost. Which, even though it is obviously unfortunate, it's still not the end of the world. He's still going to be able to junk hunt to that same turn as long as he's got an energy in his hand.
So we do see a Skyla coming down, and this is going to be the only card in Michael's hand. So he gets a Juniper, and now Vince knows exactly what he's playing against. He's playing against a Juniper next turn. You know, all Michael's going to do is just going to pass, and now we can just see like the Crushing Hammers just go ballistic.
Yeah, it's it's not going to be pretty. Let me tell you that much. We're going to have to wait and see if maybe a lot of bad luck happens on Vince's side where he just starts getting nothing but tails, and his opponent just gets so many energy in play that he can actually retreat and attack. But really, that's his only option. I don't know.
Yeah, at this point, what I want to see Vince do is, I want to, if he can, I wish he had a catcher. He got the catcher back last turn instead of, so at least that way, what he could do is, you know, he can send up the Darkrai with the Dark Claw on it, and then go, hey, I'm going to knock out your Garbodor. I'm going to put 30 on the Mewtwo, and the next turn I'm going to catcher your the Mewtwo that has 60 on it, and then just win with Dark Claw. So
Correct.
We'll see. But we do see Juniper come down, and unfortunately that Garbodor is actually just not moving ever, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, we can just sit back, relax, and just wait for the inevitable Game 2 coming up.
Yeah, it seems like Vince kind of thought the same thing. He's like, I can do that, but why don't I just grab every trainer I have in my Discord pile before, just in case. So, really, it's a matter of turns, obviously. But at this point, since this game is all but locked up, what do you think Michael's got to do to kind of avoid the situation? Obviously, not playing a second Garbodor is one thing, but having to discard those three switches early on in the game was obviously the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I really think this might be Garbodor's like one matchup it doesn't ever want to see. You know, there's so many things that can go wrong with it. Sure, you have the Landorus that you have going for you, but Landorus versus Sableye Crushing Hammer isn't very impressive. And this is what it really comes down to. We just really see like Sableye just getting in there, going infinite, and the card is just too good. It's like if Garbodor had like one card it just doesn't want to ever see, it would be Sableye.
That is entirely true. Now we see a Crushing Hammer out of Vince, gets tails. The second one does get Headso, and that's the end of that energy on the Landorus. So now I expect to see a knockout here, and we do. We see a knockout, and hopefully he does deal that 30 damage to that Mewtwo. That would be nice to see because that would give him a one-turn clock.
Yeah, so here we go. We see the 30 on the Mewtwo, and now it's Michael has to go with the N here. He has to go Landorus and cross my fingers. But even then, he's out of switches, so you know all Vince has to do is just set up 2 Night Spears. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's not pretty no matter how you look at it. Obviously the Mewtwo's the Darkrai is gonna be dealing 90 damage to this Landorus on its following turn, and then as long as Vince has any type of energy, that's it. I mean, all he has to do is do one more Night Spear.
So when in doubt, Juniper, and here we go. So we did see the Juniper come down. We do see an energy retrieval, which you know, Vince is like, okay, well, you play that card. So that means going infinite with Crushing Hammer may not be the best choice, but as long as I can buy myself enough time to just kind of knock out all your stuff, that's fine. So
Yeah, that is true. Um, not playing an Ender was a little risky. I don't know if he had it in his hand or not, but it was a little risky because now all Vince has to do is have that Pokemon catcher, which we just saw in his hand, and that's going to be the end of the game.
oh, we did see a giant cape, and that would have been
Oh
fun, but it
man,
didn't end up on the Mewtwo. Oh
yeah.
no.
I saw that too. I was like, is that a giant? Oh, it is. Oh no, it's going on the Garbodor.
Oh, we also did see, I think, 2 energy attachments in one turn, but that's okay. It's knockout anyways.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's the game. We're still waiting for a Night Spear to be declared. There we go. And
Right.
yeah, so Vince is now 3-0 versus this Garbodor deck, and can Garbodor even stand a chance for this versus really Darkrai Sableye? It's like it's just so powerful versus the Garbodor decks.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, it seems like the confusion at the end, I don't know if you noticed, but once Vince declared Night Spirit, it seemed like there was a little bit of downtime where both players were kind of staring at the board, like, and Michael was going like, oh yeah, it's got a Dark Claw on it. So he must have missed that. He must have forgotten about that, and that's why he didn't attach the Giant Cape to the Mewtwo. So he would have had an extra turn. I don't know if it would have truly mattered, but that's why the Giant Cape did not get attached. He forgot about the Dark Claw, and it took Vince's reminder to really kind of let him know that he had just lost the game. So now we do see them go on to game two. They're both shuffling up. Um, Vince has now actually won 3 straight games against this deck. Spoiler alert. And yeah, it's not looking good for Michael. He's got to win 2 games in a row against a deck that seems to be very favored. Now with that said, he did put on a lot of pressure at the beginning of the game. He does have a way to win. He truly does can abuse these Mewtwo's where it seems like Vince only plays one, and it's just a matter of not getting in that Sable lock. That Sableye lock is just very very strong, and I don't know. Maybe he has to forego Garbodor altogether. I'm not actually sure, but that might be a strategy right there.
Well, I rather than strategic decisions, I think it's more like just tightening up play a little bit. If you can make, if you can just like make all your decisions be 100% effective, then I think Garbodor can pull it out. Because let's be honest, this is a bad matchup. So as in any bad matchup, it's on the player who's on the losing end of that matchup to make all the correct decisions in order to make the game as even as possible.
Yeah, that is correct. Now, with that said, we do see that Vince not only plays the Tool Scrapper, but it seems like he always has it in a very timely fashion. Like, every time he needs it, that Tool Scrapper is there, and I'm pretty sure he only plays one. So he has gotten a little bit fortunate in that end. But if I'm Michael, I'm thinking, my opponent plays Tool Scrapper, my opponent plays Crushing Hammers and Catchers, and he's got Sableye. Maybe my Garbodor just isn't going to do enough. Maybe I just have to kind of put myself in a position where the Garbodor is not in play until I absolutely need it to be. And maybe I'll just have a couple Trebushes in play, just kind of waiting for that right moment. But in the meantime, I'm going to fight with Landorus, I'm going to fight with Mewtwo, and I'm going to hope that I can take enough prizes and save my switches to the point where I can know where I don't have to run this risk of getting locked down in the late game. So let's see if Michael can come up with some sort of a game plan that applies this type of logic and kind of put himself in a position where he is not going to be all that vulnerable to Vince's shenanigans.
Well, the dangerous thing about letting Darkrai run wild, because Darkrai is so good in all 3 stages of the game. It's so good in the early game because it can get that turn 2 Night Spear, and that's mainly because of Darkrai's ability, which lets it have free retreat. So turning that off is really your key to kind of surviving the early Night Spears. And then the mid game, Night Spear is still good throughout all the games. So the mid game is just kind of like limiting their options. And if you can get like the turn 1, turn 2 Hammerhead along with like an early Garbodor, and then at that point it's really up to Darkrai to just kind of draw their Tool Scrapper and then kind of junk hunt you out of the game. So we'll see if it's really up to how Vince draws and how how fast Michael can start attacking.
Yeah, that is entirely correct. Darkrai really abuses a lot of things. It seems like it kind of bends the game to its will. With the speed through Dark Patch, with the tempo advantage that things like Crushing Hammer really gain you, and then obviously the late game survivability. It's just it's an incredible deck to really watch in action, and it seems like even when it's down in the dumps and it feels like the deck like the game is almost lost for the deck, it just finds a way to really get back in there with its multiple energy attachments in a turn and its energy denial through Crushing Hammers.
Yeah, Crushing Hammer is really one of the key cards in the deck. You know, Night Spear, a vanilla Night Spear is kind of scary, but when you add in energy removal to it, that's when the deck gets really, really frightening. And again, we see another calm drink from the Chalice.
Yeah, and at the same time, we saw a computer search out of Michael discarding a Pokemon Catcher and Heavy Ball and attaching a double colorless through that computer search to his Mewtwo. So he's going to be dealing 20 damage to this Darkrai thanks to resistance.
So, well, every damage counts, but we do see a Crushing Hammer come down, and Tails.
Lucky Tails. Very, very fortunate for Michael that Vince got a Tails there. Obviously, the last thing you want to do is have Crushing Hammer remove 2 of your energies.
So, we do see is that an N in his hand? I can't really tell. I see a Terrakion and some dark energies, but I can't tell if that's an N or not.
I don't believe it was because he just passed the turn, and it seemed like his opponent was in a better position than him. So if I have an N there, I'm probably playing it. And yeah, I just don't know. It seems like Vince's start is not very aggressive. It's not very good, period. And he discards the double colorless to retreat and deals 60 damage. How do you like that play?
Well, I think it's perfectly fine. So we do see this is a situation where Michael really wants to be in. Yeah, it was an N, by the way. Booyah. I've noticed Vince gets a little too fancy with his ends. You know, sometimes you just got to go, I'm just going to play it, whatever, draw cards.
That is true. We see an energy search out of Vince, and at least he got some darkness energies in his discard pile. That was a nice top deck Juniper there. Yeah, he gets a fighting energy onto his, I'm assuming his Terrakion here, and he's just kind of going to set up for the long game.
Yeah, you know, that Darkrai is pretty much Dunsies. Both of them are actually in danger of just getting dominated. But we do see another Tool Scrapper every time in Vince's hand. Exactly.
Maybe he plays 4.
Maybe he plays a bunch, and that's why he's never junk hunting for Tool Scrappers, because he's just like, hey, I play more of them. Yeah. Aha, I gotcha.
That seems unlikely, but still. The fact that he always has it at the right time is just very fortunate. I can't stress enough how fortunate that truly is, because obviously we can joke around about him playing multiples, but the truth is that he probably plays 1 or 2. And the fact that he draws these early on in the game really sets him up for strong mid and early games, because now he can retreat for free, and his opponent has a Garbador in play, which is a huge liability, and all he has to do is get a Sableye in play to junk hunt it back up, and all of a sudden Michael's deck kind of falls apart.
So this play confuses me. I really dislike Michael playing all these extra Pokemon down. You know, all you really needed was your one Landorus, get a bunch of energies on it, and then all you needed was to keep dealing damage to the active Darkrai and keep your catcher for later. So I would have preferred to see maybe enough energy to start threatening land judgments. You know, so
yeah, I do agree there.
I don't know. So this is what I was kind of hailing back before the game started. You know, the one thing that Landorus Garbador really needs to do to overcome this disadvantage in the matchup is really just 100% tight play, and yeah, this is the kind of the result of what happens when it doesn't happen, is that we just see Night Spears and all kinds of crazy stuff just come at him.
Yeah. Now we see the double energy switch trick used very nicely by Vince. What he gets to do is he dark patches energies onto his bench Darkrai, energy switches an energy onto the active one in order to give it the free retreat through the ability, retreats it, and then energy switches the energy back to the Darkrai that was originally on the bench to actually be able to start Night Spearing. The problem here is that it actually has 90 damage on it. Now 90 damage is actually a little bit better than, obviously it's a lot better than 120 damage, but it's a little bit better than the situation that he could have been in with the other active Darkrai, because that 1+ power would have knocked that one out.
So here we're seeing an interesting situation. Michael really has to get a tool back onto that Garbador real quickly. Oh, did he have an N in his hand and just not play it?
I don't know. I didn't. It seems like it, right? I think I just saw it again. Yeah. Now we did see that plus power that we saw a Pokemon Catcher and that plus power that we were just talking about earlier. So at least Michael is going to get a couple of prizes off of his Landorus before he gets knocked out. But now Vince is going to be in I don't know about an enviable position, because his Darkrai is going to get a knockout here, but then it's going to get knocked right back out by the benched Landorus. So this is kind of a tricky game. The fact that Michael only has 4 prizes left is kind of puts him at in a pretty decent position, as long as he can take the final 2 after this Darkrai gets knocked out.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a syndrome that both these players have kind of ran into, where they're actually just getting way too fancy with N. You know, they just have to realize that, hey, N draws me 6 cards, and then I can take 2 prizes. That's 8 cards. That's a lot. So,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I think I think N has gotten to the a little bit of the better of both these players this game.
Yeah, it's not the easiest card in the world to play. Obviously, there's some situations in which you play it and then you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have played that. I should have held that because my opponent doesn't have a much of a chance if I don't. And then there's some situations in which you hold it back. You're thinking, oh, my opponent might not have very many good draws here, and you actually kind of outplay yourself. So it's one of those few cards that really is extremely skill intensive. But with that said, we do see a Landorus get knocked out here through Retaliate, and now the new Landorus comes into the active position. So we're going to have to see a catcher here in order to see this last last Darkrai get knocked out.
Honestly, if we see now this kind of hails back to not wasting your catchers, but if we see a catcher onto the benched Darkrai with no damage on it, then we could potentially just see the game just end in 3 turns. So, like, what could happen is you can catcher up the Darkrai, and assuming that another Tool Scrapper doesn't come flying down, the game is actually just over, because you just do 60 to the active, 30 to the bench, Darkrai, do another 60-30, and then the bench Darkrai gets knocked out, and then you just win with Landorus. So this could potentially turn into a great situation if Michael can draw the catcher, which he has right there with the Skyla, and if Vince doesn't have another Tool Scrapper. And does he have a catcher left?
Let's see here. I think he does. He should. I haven't seen him play too many.
And he does not.
I'm still looking. I'm looking. Oh man, it doesn't seem like he does he?
And this is it.
Now you have to believe that at least one catcher is going to be prized, but I don't think he's played 3, has he? Oh man, this is really unfortunate. Maybe his prizes are just really, really bad.
At the same time, I don't know what to say about this, because, like...
He's looking through the cards in disbelief, just wondering if, like, maybe one's stuck in the back of like, one of the other cards or something.
I don't know what to say about this, because, he's just going through his discards, just going, how could this happen?
That's 1, 2, 3 catchers.
Yeah.
Oh, is that 4th one there? I know I saw 3. I don't know if I saw the 4th one. Oh, yeah. This is really unfortunate.
And this is what happens when you kind of just use catchers like this. You have paths to victory, and then you cut yourself short because you just run out of resources. 2, 3, you have 4 catchers in the discard.
Oh, man. If I'm Vince, I'm wiping my brow right now. I'm just thinking my lucky stars. Yeah. Because I really don't think Vince plays Tool Scrapper.
Yeah, at this point, it's really just cruise control for Vince here, He doesn't really need the Garbador doesn't really matter anymore. All he has to do is just sit back, relax, and just kind of travel his way to victory.
Now, do you want to see Vince attach a fighting energy to the active Terrakion here?
Oh yeah, just go ahead and land crush all day.
Now we see a crushing hammer as well. Hopefully, let's see. Okay, he does get tails.
That's a heads. That's heads.
Why did I say tails? I meant heads.
Yeah.
My tongue got ahead of my brain there for a second. But yeah, he does get that heads there, and he gets rid of the opponent's active energy on the Landorus.
Uh-huh. So, yep. We see a land crush come in, and now we're just gonna see really this Terrakion just run wild. And there's nothing really that Michael can do about it. At this point, we're just kind of counting the turns until the game is over. There was one path for victory where I think Michael, if he had saved that catcher, he actually just wins this game 100%. Given the game state, given, like, everything we know about Vince's deck, there's actually, like, 0% chance of Vince winning this game. And because he's out of catchers, well, that changes completely.
Yeah. I don't know if the game's necessarily over yet. I do agree that Vince is definitely in a commanding position thanks to the unfortunate lack of catchers in Michael's deck. But he does have, well, let's see here. He's going to need to attack with Mewtwo here. So once the Landers gets knocked out, he recovers with a Mewtwo knockout. And then if Vince doesn't really have any energies for his Darkrai or something like that, I mean, we could see a potential comeback from Michael here.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, like, he's going to require, like, 2 DCs at this point. He's going to... the plan I'm even thinking of requires Pokemon Catcher. What am I saying?
Oh, man.
At this point, what can be done? If Vince can get a Dark Patch, the game's kind of over.
I mean, we saw a random receiver finding a Juniper, so Vince's next turn is already secured in a way, unless Michael has an N, a very timely N. But not only does he need the N, he is also going to need some sort of definitely a double colorless energy. But instead, we see his hand actually contain only a fighting energy and I believe a Trubbish. So it's not looking too hot. Let's figure out what Michael can do here. He might have to actually garbage collect. Oh man.
So yeah, maybe. Probably not. I think he has an energy. I would just put it on the Landorus, yeah. And actually, I probably would have put it on the Mewtwo, to be honest. Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I would have put it on the Mewtwo as well.
Yeah, put it on the Mewtwo and just go.
At least
for
we see an N.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's like, well, what does Vince do? He can like land crush the Trubbish, sure, but then Mewtwo just comes in, and then maybe a big enough Mewtwo will win the game, maybe. Unless. Well, okay, hold up. Actually, I like the Landorus attachment because what can happen here is, say Vince knocks out the Trubbish, but okay. Michael gets 2 more energy cards. So then he can just go, wait, never mind, this doesn't actually work. I don't know.
It might. Yeah, it might. He, let's see here. The Trubbish gets knocked out. We deal 30 with the hammer. Then Vince takes his turn. Hopefully he does nothing.
Well, he does 90. He does 90, and then
then he attaches his third energy, knocks out the track, and if his opponent doesn't have a third energy, then he's going to be able to take a final knockout. So it does work. Now, granted, the Pokemon Catcher kind of stops that from working, but that's that.
Yeah, we just see a land crush, and
and he did have the 2 energies too. So
yeah, so this move indicates. Well, it doesn't even indicate. It's just like it doesn't even matter at this point. He's just gonna get land crushed by Terrakion, and that's the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we see his hand. He doesn't have the switch, so he is gonna attack. He's gonna perform his final attack, and now Vince just kind of signals what he's about to do, and that's it. That's the handshake. Yeah, it seemed like Vince found a different way to win in almost every one of those games. One of those games was won through Sableye's Junk Hunt. The other game was won through the Terrakion just being able to really land crush his way to victory. And obviously we saw what Vince did against Justin in the top 8. So it does seem like Vince got a very fortunate pairing here in top 8 and in top 4. And now he's going to get to actually face our very own Kyle Sukovich in the finals.
Yeah, congratulations to Vince, but I almost feel like the Garbador decks always had like a way to win I mean, like, don't get me wrong, they were losing, like, throughout the game, but they'd always had like this, like, oh, here's an opportunity to win, but then like, oh, it just, things didn't work out. So
Yeah. In game one, actually, he was forced to Juniper away those 3 switches.
yeah,
Early
that
on,
was huge.
and that cost him the game. I mean, that alone, and it's not like he had much of a choice there. He had to Juniper there because he was supported dead the entire game, and losing those 3 switches kind of just left him open to that Sable lock. And then we saw what happened here. So yeah, congratulations to Vince. It's a well-earned victory, and he's on his way to the finals. And we'll have to wait and see what he can pull off against Kyle.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the finals.